In an era when queerness was hidden behind studio contracts and carefully manufactured personas, many old Hollywood actresses found themselves loving in secret, or not-so-secret ways. Today, we shine a spotlight on 22 incredible women whose stories have often been left in the shadows. Get ready for drama, glamour, heartbreak, resilience, and a little bit of old Hollywood gossip. Here are the real stories of old Hollywood actresses who loved women. Greta Garbo. Born in Stockholm in 1905, Greta Garbo was the ultimate screen enigma. Her haunting beauty and brooding presence on screen made her a legend from the moment she arrived in Hollywood. Garbo's rise was meteoric. Films like Flesh and the Devil, Anna Karenina, and Camille cemented her as a queen of both the silent and sound eras. But off-screen, Garbo was famously private, shunning the press, skipping Oscar ceremonies, and living a reclusive life after her early retirement at age 35. What many didn't see was Garbo's love for women. While she had relationships with men, her most intense and lasting bonds were with women. Her letters to playwright Mercedes Diaosta were full of longing and intimacy. Scholars believe their affair lasted for decades, with Diaosta writing, "I can't live without you." Garbo also shared deeply close relationships with actresses like Louise Brooks and possibly Lillian Tashman. The star's preference for privacy meant she never publicly labeled herself, but her circle of female lovers and friends were an open secret in Hollywood's sewing circle, the code name for lesbian and bisexual actresses. Garbo's mystique endures, but so does the love she shared with women, hidden in her famous locked trunk of letters. Tula Bankhead. If Hollywood ever had a true wild child, it was Tula Bankhead. Born into Southern aristocracy in 1902, Tula took Broadway and Hollywood by storm with her smoky voice, quick wit, and sheer force of personality. She starred in Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat, played Blanche Dubois on stage, and dazzled at every party she attended. But behind her magnetic persona was a woman who lived without apology. Bankhead was famously candid about her sexuality. She loved men and women, moving freely among lovers regardless of gender, and making jokes about her paramours to the press. She had notorious affairs with stars like Greta Garbo, Billie Holiday, and Paty Kelly, and her friendship with Mercedes Diaosta was famously flirtatious. Bankhead's flamboyant nature didn't always play well in puritanical Hollywood, and she frequently clashed with studio heads. She drank, smoked, and said exactly what she thought. Yet even as her film career waned, she remained an icon, proof that sometimes the truest legacy is being utterly, unmistakably yourself, no matter who's watching. Barbara Stanwyck. Barbara Stanwyck was the ultimate tough-as-nails screen goddess. Born Ruby Stevens in 1907 in Brooklyn, Stanwyck survived a hardscrabble childhood to become a leading lady in classics like Double Indemnity, Stella Dallas, and The Lady Eve. She projected independence and strength in every role, a true embodiment of the modern woman. But behind the hard shell was a woman with secrets. Hollywood's worst-kept secret was Stanwyck's close relationships with women. While married to actors Frank Fay and Robert Taylor, she was rumored to have had deep, sometimes romantic friendships with women like her Double Indemnity co-star Patricia Collinge and other actresses. She was a regular at Hollywood's Sewing Circle, the underground network of lesbian and bisexual actresses. While Stanwyck never publicly came out, her refusal to marry again and her lifelong female friendships fueled speculation. Her legacy is one of resilience, complexity, and the courage to love on her own terms, even in a town built on illusion. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford was the embodiment of old Hollywood ambition. Her rags-to-riches story, her steely determination, and her unforgettable roles in Mildred Pierce, Grand Hotel, and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane made her a star for decades. Born Lucille Le Sueur. In 1904, Crawford transformed herself through sheer will, rising from a poverty-stricken childhood to become one of MGM's most bankable icons. While Crawford's many marriages and romantic entanglements with men were well publicized, the other side of her love life was far more discreet. Rumors swirled in Hollywood about her close friendships and possible affairs with actresses such as Barbara Stanwyck and Tula Bankhead, as well as her part in the sewing circle. Crawford was fiercely protective of her image, but her penchant for women was whispered about behind closed doors and hinted at in confidential studio memos. Whatever the truth of her relationships, Crawford's life was defined by her refusal to play by the rules, on screen and off. She fought for the roles she wanted, survived career ups and downs, and kept her secrets locked tight. Even now, decades after her death, Joan Crawford remains an icon of power, drama, and the complicated ways women have always loved each other in Hollywood. Clawdet Colbear. Clawdet Colbear, born Emilie Claudette Chauchois in 1903, was elegance personified. With her razor-sharp wit and magnetic screen presence, Colbear became the queen of screwball comedy, winning the Oscar for It Happened One Night and dazzling audiences in Cleopatra and The Palm Beach Story. But her on-screen grace masked a fiercely private woman. Throughout her career, Colbear was dogged by rumors of relationships with women. She was particularly close to Marlene Dietrich, and some Hollywood insiders claimed their friendship was much more. Colbert's lifelong companionship with Verna Hull, a wealthy painter, was marked by a closeness that defied the era's norms. Many believe the two women were romantic partners for decades, traveling together and sharing homes in California and Barbados. Colbert was careful to maintain her image, rarely giving interviews and never confirming any rumors. Yet her independence, her ability to control her own destiny, and her rumored romances with some of Hollywood's most fascinating women make her a quiet icon of queer resilience. In the studio era, discretion was often the only option, but that didn't mean love didn't flourish. Janet Gainor. Long before the modern blockbuster, Janet Gainor was America's sweetheart. Born Laura Gaynor in 1906, she became the first ever winner of the Academy Award for Best Actress, taking home the gold for 3 films in a single year: Seventh Heaven, Street Angel, and Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans. Her transition from silent films to talkies was smooth, and she kept audiences enthralled for decades with her warmth and authenticity. Behind the scenes, Gaynor's life was a tapestry of unconventional love. She married 3 times and had a child, but persistent rumors linked her romantically to several women, especially her fellow star Margaret Livingston and Broadway legend Mary Martin. Gaynor and Martin were inseparable, and their close companionship raised eyebrows across Hollywood. The two were even in a car accident together in 1982, an event that seemed to underscore their lifelong bond. Gaynor's second husband, Adrian, was a famed MGM costume designer and openly gay. Some believe their marriage was a lavender one, a mutually beneficial arrangement that allowed both partners to live as they wished in private. Whether Gaynor ever spoke openly about her relationships with women is lost to history, but her story is a reminder that queer love found ways to bloom, even under the harshest spotlight. Marie Dressler. A true original, Marie Dressler defied every Hollywood stereotype. Born Layla Marie Kerber in 1868, Dressler was a powerhouse on stage and screen, winning an Oscar for Min and Bill and delighting audiences with her comedic timing and larger-than-life presence. Her career was a roller coaster. After early success, she was blacklisted for a decade, only to mount a spectacular comeback in her late 50s. While Dressler's professional achievements are well documented, her personal life has long been a subject of fascination. After the death of her close companion Jim Dalton, Dressler formed a deep and possibly romantic relationship with actress Claire Dubray. The two shared a home, traveled together, and weathered the storms of Hollywood's unforgiving landscape side by side. Dressler was known as a private person, guarding her personal affairs carefully, Understandable in a world where open lesbian relationships could end a career. Still, the bond she shared with Dubray and her devotion to a circle of female friends speak volumes. Marie Dressler's story is one of resilience, friendship, and a quiet courage that allowed her to thrive in an industry that didn't always make room for women like her. Carol Landis. Born in Wisconsin in 1919, Carol Landis embodied the promise and pitfalls of Hollywood's golden age. With striking beauty and a warm, infectious personality, she quickly became a sought-after star in the 1940s, landing roles in 1 Million BC, Topper Returns, and I Wake Up Screaming. Her career should have soared. She made nearly 50 films in just a decade, but Carol's personal life was as tumultuous as any noir plot. Beneath her glamorous surface, Landis struggled with heartache and Hollywood's rigid expectations. Though she married several times, whispers about her bisexuality dogged her career. In 1945, rumors spread about a relationship with writer Jacqueline Suzanne, a love that many believe contributed to her professional decline. Hollywood's powers that be were notoriously intolerant, and even the suspicion of same-sex romance could be a career death sentence. Despite her bubbly persona, Carol faced private battles with depression and feelings of isolation. She was known to support other queer women in the industry, moving in the fringes of Hollywood's sewing circle. Tragically, Landis died by suicide at age 29, a loss that stunned friends and fans alike. Today, Carol Landis is remembered not just for her screen presence, but as a symbol of the hidden struggles of queer women in old Hollywood. Her story reminds us that the brightest stars sometimes burn out far too soon, and that living authentically has always come with a price. Lillian Tashman. If ever there was a woman who knew how to command a room, it was Lillian Tashman. Born in Brooklyn in 1896, Tashman became a star not only for her acting talent, but for her legendary fashion sense. She earned the title of Hollywood's best-dressed woman, dazzling both on and off screen in films like Bulldog Drummond, Girls About Town, and The Marriage Playground. But Tashman's appeal went far beyond couture. She was bold, sharp-tongued, and rumored to have an appetite for life, and for love, that rivaled any of her male counterparts. Stories circulated about her romantic entanglements with some of Hollywood's biggest names, including Joan Crawford, Greta Garbo, and Kay Francis. Whether or not these relationships were more than close friendships, Tashman's name was always linked to Hollywood's sapphic underground. Married to actor Edmund Lowe, Tashman was nevertheless a fixture in the secret lesbian sewing circle. Her parties were legendary for bringing together the industry's most glamorous and daring women. Sadly, her life was cut short by illness. She died in 1934 at just 37. But her reputation for breaking boundaries and loving boldly lives on. Lillian Tashman's legacy is not just in the films she made, but in the doors she quietly opened for women who dared to be themselves. Ava Legalen. A true force of nature, Ava Legalen was born in London in 1899 and quickly became one of the most respected actresses and directors of her time. After relocating to Paris with her mother, she fell under the spell of the theater, inspired by legendary performers like Sarah Bernhardt. By her 20s, Legalen had conquered both Broadway and Hollywood, starring in classics and founding the Civic Repertory Theater, where she mentored countless actors. Legalen was remarkable not only for her artistry, but also for her openness. In an era when discretion was the rule, Ava lived boldly as a lesbian. Her relationships with women, like Alla Nazimova, Alice Delamare, who also funded her theater company, and the married actress Josephine Hutchinson, were the staff of legend, and often the source of scandal. She even found herself at the center of a notorious love triangle with Hutchinson and Marian Evanson, a story that the press devoured with glee. Despite, or perhaps because of, her courage, Ava often paid a heavy price. The backlash against her romantic life followed her throughout her career, leaving her at times feeling isolated and regretful. "If you have any thoughts about being a lesbian, don't do it," she warned in her later years, a testament to the toll that living authentically could exact. Yet Legalien's spirit and her willingness to love in the open paved the way for future generations of queer artists. Elizabeth Scott. Elizabeth Scott, known as the Queen of Film Noir, was the sultry, smoky-voiced actress who captivated audiences in the 1940s and 50s. Born Emma Matzo in 1922 in Pennsylvania, she shot to stardom in films like Dead Reckoning, Too Late for Tears, and The Strange Love of Martha Ivers. Scott's cool, understated style set her apart from her more dramatic contemporaries, and she was often cast as the alluring femme fatale. But Hollywood's fascination with Scott extended beyond her on-screen roles. In 1954, Confidential magazine ran a sensational story accusing her of being a lesbian and associating with notorious lesbian entertainers in Paris. Scott sued for libel, but lost, and the scandal cast a shadow over her career, from which she never fully recovered. Despite the rumors and setbacks, Scott never bowed to Hollywood's demands. She refused to hide her friendships with women, resisted the industry's pressure to conform, and managed her finances so well that she lived comfortably long after her last film. While she never spoke publicly about her relationships, the whispers that surrounded her have become part of her legend. Elizabeth Scott's story is one of resilience, dignity, and the quiet defiance of a woman determined to live on her own terms, no matter the cost. Katharine Hepburn. When you think of independent women in Hollywood, Katharine Hepburn stands in a league of her own. Born in 1907 to a progressive family in Connecticut, Hepburn blazed trails on stage and screen, winning 4 Academy Awards and becoming the enduring face of films like The Philadelphia Story, Bringing Up Baby, and The African Queen. She wore pants when women were expected to don skirts, spoke her mind fearlessly, and became an icon of women's liberation before the term existed. Much has been written about her legendary partnership with Spencer Tracy, but beneath the surface, Hepburn's private life was full of complexity and rumor. Biographers and Hollywood insiders have suggested that Hepburn was bisexual, with a string of close, romantic relationships with women, among them writer Nancy Hamilton and actress Frances Rich. According to some, her affair with Tracy was more for public consumption, a protective cover for their true orientations. One Hollywood insider, Scotty Bowers, claimed that he arranged dozens of liaisons with women for Hepburn, describing her as someone who preferred the company of women. The evidence, while mostly circumstantial, paints a picture of a woman who refused to be boxed in by society's expectations, living, loving, and working according to her own rules. Katharine Hepburn's legacy is not just as a movie star, but as a symbol of freedom, self-determination, and the courage it takes to love boldly in a world that demands secrecy. Frances Rich. Frances Rich was a woman of many talents, actress, acclaimed sculptor, and a quiet but powerful presence in the hidden history of Hollywood's queer women. Born in 1910 to silent film star Irene Rich, Frances was practically raised in the arts. She started as an actress, with roles in films like The 13th Guest and Zoo in Budapest during the early 1930s, but ultimately found her greatest passion and recognition in sculpture. While her film career was brief, Frances Rich's personal life drew more intrigue, especially her close relationship with Katharine Hepburn. Introduced by mutual friends, Frances and Kate formed a bond that many have interpreted as romantic, though neither woman ever commented publicly. Friends noted the special affection Frances spoke of during her travels with Hepburn, and Kate herself sat for multiple sculpted portraits by Rich, intimate sessions that spanned years. After stepping away from acting, Frances Rich built an extraordinary career as a sculptor, creating portrait busts for universities, hospitals, and the military, including the renowned Army-Navy Nurse Monument in Arlington. She lived quietly and independently, her legacy shaped not only by her art, but also by her defiant commitment to personal privacy. In an era when women's lives were often scripted by society, Frances Rich wrote her own story, one where art and love were crafted in her own image, regardless of Hollywood's expectations. Paty Kelly. Irreverent, hilarious, and unapologetically herself, Paty Kelly blazed a unique trail through the Hollywood of the 1930s and beyond. Born in Brooklyn in 1910, she started as a vaudeville performer before hitting it big in comedy shorts and features like Pigskin Parade and Topper Returns. Patsy's quick wit and bold personality made her a favorite with audiences, and, unusually for her time, she was open about her sexuality. In an era when most queer actresses hid their love lives, Kelly was blunt. She openly referred to herself as a dyke, lived with her girlfriend, and never planned to marry a man. She frequented lesbian bars and clubs, dressed in pants when other women wore gowns, and openly enjoyed the company of mannish women. Her on-and-off romance with Tula Bankhead was legendary in Hollywood circles. She even worked as Bankhead's assistant, touring nightclubs and creating a buzz wherever they went. But Hollywood's tolerance only went so far. Kelly's career suffered in the 1940s, exacerbated by her struggles with alcoholism and clashes with studio executives. After being blacklisted by Warner Brothers due to her drinking and refusal to hide her sexuality, she returned to New York, spending her later years in the supportive company of Bankhead. Paty Kelly may not have reached leading lady status, but she remains a cult figure, a reminder that being yourself, even in a hostile industry, is a kind of stardom all its own. Glattis Bentley. Glattis Bentley wasn't your typical Hollywood actress, but she was every bit the trailblazer, a dynamic performer who shook up the Harlem Renaissance, and later, the California nightclub scene. Born in Philadelphia in 1907, Bentley faced early rejection from her family for her non-conforming gender expression. But once she arrived in New York City as a teenager, she created a new identity. The queen of Harlem's speakeasies, dazzling crowds in tuxedos and top hats, belting blues songs with risque lyrics about her love affairs with women. Bentley's stage presence was magnetic. She headlined the famous Clam House and Ubangi Club, often accompanied by drag queens and surrounded by admirers. Her boldness was unmatched. She openly courted women, sang about her desires, and refused to apologize for who she was, even when it cost her. As Prohibition ended and the Harlem scene changed, Bentley relocated to Los Angeles, performing in gay nightclubs and facing new obstacles, including police harassment and legal restrictions against performing in men's clothes. In later years, Bentley claimed to have converted to heterosexuality, likely under societal and religious pressures. But her legend as a groundbreaking black lesbian performer was already sealed. She died at just 52, but her influence echoes in the world of queer performance, drag, and music to this day. Glattis Bentley proved that being true to yourself could be revolutionary, and that music and love knows no boundaries. Ruby Dandridge. Ruby Dandridge's legacy is often overshadowed by her daughter Dorothy's stardom, but Ruby herself was a force in the world of entertainment, and her personal life offers a poignant glimpse into queer family life in early Hollywood. Born in 1900, Ruby found steady work in radio and film, lending her distinctive high-pitched voice to beloved shows like Amos and Andy, and playing comic roles in movies including King Kong and Cabin in the Sky. Behind the laughter was a woman navigating a complex and often difficult home life. Ruby's marriage to Cyril Dandridge was brief and unhappy. After their divorce, Ruby entered a relationship with Geneva Williams, who managed her household and played a major role in raising her daughters. While Geneva's disciplinary methods were notoriously harsh, it was clear that the two women operated as a couple, a reality that Ruby never publicly acknowledged but was recognized by those close to the family. Ruby's story is bittersweet, a survivor in a tough business, a loving, if sometimes distracted mother, and a woman who dared to build a life with another woman at a time when such love had to be hidden. She passed away in 1987, leaving behind a complicated but important legacy, one of queer resilience, family, and the unseen networks of support that allowed so many Hollywood dreams to take flight. Hope Emerson. Few actresses could fill a screen, literally and figuratively, like Hope Emerson. Born in Iowa in 1897, she started her career as a vaudeville performer and singer before moving on to Broadway, and eventually to Hollywood. Standing over 6 feet tall and weighing more than 230 pounds, Emerson made a memorable impression in roles that called for power and presence, most famously as the sadistic prison matron in Caged in 1950, a performance that earned her an Academy Award nomination. Yet while her professional life was defined by toughness, Emerson's private life was shrouded in mystery. She never married or had children, and maintained a guarded personal life that sparked rumors and speculation, especially about her sexuality. Her androgynous appearance and refusal to conform to traditional female roles made her a subject of fascination in Hollywood's queer circles, with many believing she was lesbian or bisexual. Like so many women of her era, Emerson's choices were constrained by the rigid expectations of the industry. She died at 62, taken by a liver ailment, with her secrets largely intact. But her impact, on film, on television, and in the unseen world of queer Hollywood, remains. Hope Emerson reminds us that strength takes many forms, and that sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones told in the spaces between the headlines. Pepy Letterer. Some Hollywood stories shine brightly but end too soon, and the life of Pepy Letterer is one of those tragic yet fascinating tales. Born in 1910 into a theatrical family, Pepy, often spelled Peppy, was the niece of screen legend Marion Davies. With show business in her blood, Pepy was expected to make her own mark in the world of entertainment. But Pepy's real notoriety came not from her brief film work, but from her candid embrace of her sexuality in an era of suffocating secrecy. As a young woman, she became involved in Hollywood's underground queer scene, attending parties at her aunt's lavish estate, and forming close, often romantic, relationships with other women. Her affair with actress Nina Mae McKinney drew particular attention due to both racial and social taboos, as did her intense relationship with Elma Rubin, a bond that was as much about shared rebellion as it was about love. After Marion Davies and William Randolph Hearst discovered her sexuality, Pepy was sent away to New York, where her life spiraled. Struggling with addiction and mental health, she was eventually institutionalized, and at just 25, she died after a fall from a hospital window. Official reports called it an accident, but friends always suspected otherwise. Despite her short life, Pepy Letterer is remembered as a courageous, if troubled, pioneer, a young woman who refused to deny her truth, no matter the cost. Grace Darmond. While not as widely remembered as some of her contemporaries, Grace Darmond played a crucial role in the silent film era and in the lives of old Hollywood's queer women. Born in 1893 in Toronto, she moved to Hollywood as a young woman, where her striking features and dramatic talent landed her roles in more than 24 films, including Below the Surface, The Hope Diamond Mystery, and A Dangerous Adventure. Grace's personal life, however, was the stuff of legend within the sewing circle. She was famously involved in a romantic relationship with fellow actress Jean Acker, and the pair's liaison became a major scandal after Acker married silent film heartthrob Rudolph Valentino, only to leave him on their wedding night to return to Grace. The love triangle caused a sensation, fueling rumors and headlines, but Grace and Jean remained close for many years. Beyond her relationship with Acker, Grace Darmond was part of an underground network of queer women who gathered at Alla Nazimova's famed Garden of Alla. There, she was free to express her true self among other artists, far from the judgmental gaze of mainstream society. Like many silent stars, Darmond's career faded with the rise of talkies, But her boldness in love and life left a mark on Hollywood history. She died in 1963, quietly and out of the spotlight. But her role in queer Hollywood lore is secure, a testament to a time when women carved out spaces for themselves in the shadows. Marlene Dietrich. Born in Berlin in 1901, Marlene Dietrich brought an unmistakable glamour and edge to the silver screen. Known for her deep voice, sultry looks, and daring fashion, she famously wore tuxedos and top hats both on and off screen. Dietrich became a symbol of sexual freedom and androgyny. Her roles in films like The Blue Angel and Morocco captivated audiences worldwide. Dietrich's love life was legendary and refreshingly open for the era. She loved both men and women, making little secret of her bisexuality in private circles. Her affairs with women included some of the brightest stars of the era: Mercedes Diaosta, Edith Piaf, Kay Francis, Clawdet Colbear, and, yes, Greta Garbo. Her daughter later wrote that Dietrich's relationships with women were far more emotionally fulfilling than those with men. Dietrich moved effortlessly between Hollywood and Europe, defying conventions wherever she went. She performed for Allied troops in World War II and lived for decades as a cabaret star, still shocking audiences by changing from evening gowns into men's suits mid-show. Marlene was not just a screen siren. She was an icon for women who dared to love outside the boundaries. And her trailblazing legacy lives on every time a woman steps out in a tuxedo, owning her desire. Mercedes Diaosta. Some women are simply born for drama, and Mercedes Diaosta was one of them. Born in 1893 to a prominent Spanish-Cuban family, Mercedes moved in the highest artistic circles, becoming a poet, playwright, and Hollywood's most notorious lady lover. While she penned plays and poems, she is best remembered for her passionate affairs with nearly every great actress of her day. Diaosta's lovers included Greta Garbo, Marlene Dietrich, Isadora Duncan, Tula Bankhead, Ava Legalen, and Alla Nazimova. She wrote frankly about her romances in her memoirs, sparking scandal and outrage among Hollywood elites who preferred discretion. Mercedes was open about her lesbian identity decades before it was remotely acceptable, wearing men's clothes, courting drama, and living life as a proud bohemian. While some dismissed her as a mere groupie, others recognized her as a powerful connector. She brought together some of the brightest talents of the 20th century and kept their secrets, and sometimes didn't. Her legacy is one of audacity. She loved fiercely, wrote bravely, and insisted on living and loving out loud. Alla Nazimova. Step into the salons of silent-era Hollywood, and you'll find the mysterious, magnetic Alla Nazimova. Born in Russia in 1879, Nazimova was already a stage legend by the time she arrived in Hollywood in the 1910s. She became a pioneer of silent film, starring in Camille, Salome, and more, often producing, directing, and writing as well, long before such things were common for women. But perhaps Nazimova's most enduring impact was off-screen. Her sprawling estate, the Garden of Allah, became a legendary gathering place for artists, misfits, and especially queer women in Hollywood. The parties she hosted were infamous for their flamboyance and freedom, hidden from the prying eyes of the press, but not from the whispers of the town. Nazimova herself loved women fiercely, including Ava Legalen and Dolly Wilde, and helped coin the phrase sewing circle as a coded way to describe the hidden network of lesbian and bisexual actresses. Nazimova lived her truth as best she could, even in a world that demanded silence. She mentored young actresses, supported friends through heartbreak and scandal, and never quite gave up on art or love. Though her film stardom faded with the arrival of talkies, her legacy as the godmother of queer Hollywood endures, an artist, a lover, and a rebel before her time. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Hollywood's hidden history. If you enjoyed these stories of courage, love, and resilience, Please remember to like this video, share it with fellow film fans, and subscribe to our channel for more untold stories from the world of cinema. Your support helps us keep these important histories alive. Until next time, keep celebrating the magic of movies and the lives behind the legends.